So this is an introduction to person and number, which are two aspects of finite verbs in Latin. And it's an introduction to the verb sum, which is the verb meaning to be. So let's get started. You already understand, or you already have learned the concept of number because nouns have number. Nouns are either singular or plural, just like in English. So there are two numbers, singular and plural. There are three people. When you combine people or persons and number, you get 6 different combinations. We have the same combinations in English. Let me explain what person means. So there are 3 people, and we talk about those 3 people as the first person, the second person, and the third person. The first person is me. Kind of egotistical, perhaps, but that's the way it is. First person is me. So the second person is you. When I say something in the first person singular, I say, I am doing this. When you say something in the second person singular, you're saying, you are doing this. The third person is he, she, that other guy over there. Right? So it makes sense. It's very egocentric, but the first person starts with me. Second person is the person I'm closest to, and the third person is that person over there. So when we add number as a modulation for person, we get the plural first and second and third persons. So if there's more than one of the first person, more than one of me, then we say we or us. More than one second person is you all, and third person plural is they. So that's person and number. Those are 2 aspects of a verb that you should always be able to describe. You should always be able to say, this is in the first person singular, this is in the second person plural, etc. So the forms of sum are going to be somewhat familiar to you if you've had a Romance language, if you've taken Spanish or Italian or anything like that, French. So they are simply sum, est, sumus, estis, sunt. And those are, sum is I am, est is you are, est is he, she, it is, sumus is we are, estis is you all are, and sunt is they are. So again, sum is the first person, and sum and sumus are the first person, es and estis are the second, and est and sunt are the third, and that column going down, the first column is singular, and the second column is plural. So, but wait a minute, what is sum? What are we talking about when we say sum? We're very familiar with the verb in English, but what is to be? What kind of verb is it? Well, it's an intransitive linking verb. Now, what does that mean? Well, intransitive means that it doesn't have an object. This verb can't take an object, so you can't be being. You can't be the drawer in the sense of acting on the drawer. Can't be the table in the sense of an action. So it's intransitive. It's also a linking verb, which means that it connects 2 nouns or adjectives and equates them, makes them equal to each other. And we'll talk about what that means in a minute. Sum doesn't have voice. What on earth does that mean? Well, we'll get to the other aspects of what verbs have, the other aspects that verbs have, but sum doesn't have voice because it's neither active or passive. As I said, you can't be being. That would be trying to make sum passive. So it's neither active or passive. We say that it's in the finite verb that we're talking about the present indicative. So those are all terms, grammatical terms that I'm kind of throwing around loosely. You don't need to know about them right now. All you need to know is that sum is an intransitive linking verb. It doesn't have voice, and most importantly, it has three main usages that we're going to talk about in our course. So these are the three uses of sum. The first usage is the stative. So, as we've already talked about, when we talked about inflection last week, we talked about how Latin doesn't need extra words like English does to modulate its verbs or conjugate its verbs. All of the information you need about what the action of the verb is contained in that one word. So we can say sum, and it just means I am. In other words, I exist. You are. You're a person. You exist. So that is the stative function of sum, and it means that you can have in Latin a one-word sentence, sum. It has a subject, I, and it has a verb, am. So the second usage of sum is as a substantive verb. So, sunt puellae. Sunt puellae means there are the girls. In English, we express this idea of substantiveness by using there is or there are, or it is, or even they are. So there are the girls. We're not quite saying that they exist. It's not exactly the stative term. We're just saying there's some girls. There they are. They are present. They exist in the world. That's just sort of the idea. So in this case, puellae is actually the subject, and sunt is the predicate. Now we'll talk in class about what it means, that word predicate, and what it means to predicate something of something else. But for now, all you need to know is that all sentences have a subject and a predicate. And what I mean by that is that all sentences have a subject, something that the sentence is about, and they have something predicated of that subject, which means that the subject is doing something or is existing in the world as something. So that's what's happening here with the substantive use. And then the last use is the copulative use. Sum is a copula, we call it, which is just the Latin word for connection. So the thing that sum can also do is connect two nouns or adjectives, two ideas, people, places, or things together and equate them. So femina est domina means the woman is a mistress. So we're connecting those two ideas. We're saying, here's this woman. We could say est femina. We could say there is a woman. We can say est domina. We could say she is a mistress. And then when we connect those two ideas, we're simply equating them together. Femina est domina. That's the copulative use of sum. So, as you'll have noticed in that example that I just gave, femina and domina were both in the nominative case. Nominative, singular, and feminine. And they agree in case because the nominative is the case of sum. Sum is a connecting or linking verb, and so it always links two things that are the same. That's the definition of a linking verb, is a word or an expression that links a subject with its predicate. So, if we have femina est domina, you can think of the est as a equal sign. So we will talk more in class, as I said, about the idea of predication. That will solidify the ideas that you are beginning to understand about this idea of sum.